In the last few days, Sayadaw has been explaining the qualities of a good spiritual friend, a true Kalyanamitta, the 8 causal qualities and 7 resultant qualities. And Sayadaw has been explaining this so that we will be able to choose a good meditation teacher. One must not err in choosing a meditation teacher. It's not enough just to have a teacher. If one has the wrong teacher, then one will suffer throughout samsara. Therefore, according to the Buddha's teachings, Sayadaw explained the qualities of a Kalyanamitta, a spiritual friend. And at this point, he needs to review the basic method. When we do the practice, it's important to do so systematically. We need a method, and the method is how to do the practice, what to do. Knowing the method, when we put it into practice, we must do so according to rules. We must follow rules. So there's 2 aspects, the method and rules. First of all, we learn the method and we study it so that we can put it into practice. And then when we do so, we need to follow rules. The Buddha taught the Dhamma and the Vinaya. The Dhamma is an exact system which will bring benefit if we put it into practice. If we're going to practice, we have to do so according to rules, and that is the Vinaya. We learn the correct method from a Kalyanamitta, a spiritual friend, and then we practiced systematically. And if we don't know the method true, study, listen, study, learn it till we do. Well, that's a little phrase to remember. If we don't know the method true, study, learn it till we do. So the method for training, we need, in the Dhamma there's a method for training our physical, verbal, and mental behaviors. The method for training physical and verbal behaviors is sila, morality. With the practice of sila, we avoid transgressive kilesas. And from there, we still need to control the mind. One needs to note the arising object at every occurrence. With effort, mindfulness, and samadhi. Effort to note the object, aiming, mindfulness sticks to the object, and samadhi arises. So basically, virya, effort, sati, mindfulness, and samadhi. We develop these. First we establish them, and then develop them so that they become larger and larger, stronger and stronger. When these factors are in our mind through the practice, then the desire to transgress doesn't arise. It calms down. And if it does arise, we note it we dispel it with noting. So the controlling our mind is done by noting, and we can either prevent kilesas so that they don't arise, or if they do, we can cure them. The finest level of kilesas are the seeds of kilesas, the latent kilesas, and we weaken these with Vipassana knowledge that develops as we continue the practice. It develops in stages. When our knowledge is ripe, then we can cut off the kilesas completely with knowledge of the path and fruition. The 3 trainings of sila, samadhi, and panya, morality, concentration, and wisdom, are the method that we apply. And knowing this, we need to put this practice of the 3 trainings into practice systematically according to rules. The correct method that we need to learn has come down to us from the Buddha through generations of teachers. We need to study it in order to practice. We can study by hearing about it, or by reading, or by discussing. Through any of these means, we can come to know the correct method. So if we don't know the method true, then study, learn it till we do. And then we put it into practice. And to do that, we come to a place like this, quiet and secluded. And first of all, we establish ourselves in sila. And then we observe every arising object as it occurs, making effort to note the object, aiming so that we put our minds in alignment with the object. And gradually we come to see body and mind, rupa and nama, and we see cause-effect, how they're related by cause and effect. And we come to see the common characteristics of impermanence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, and anatta, the quality of no self. And we develop Vipassana knowledge stage by stage. For the moment, we can leave aside discussing path and fruition, because these happen naturally when we apply the practice, through applying the practice. All we need to do is to know the method and then put it into practice. Our knowledge gradually develops. It's like when we see something from afar. In order to see it better, we draw closer, and we come to see more and more clearly. So at first we see, if we see a line of ants from afar, first of all, we won't see very much detail. If we look from far away, it may even look like a stick, just a stick lying on the ground. And then as we get closer, we may see that it's not stationary, it's moving. We just see the moving quality, but we don't see anything more than that. And as we come closer, we see there's individual ants that are each moving, and we can see them one after another. This is like what we do in practice. Through the practice, we come to know clearly. First, we apply aim and effort when the object arises, and the mind becomes collected. When that happens, we start to know the true nature. And as much as we come close to the object, to that extent, we know the true nature. Now, in order to know, we just use this method. As Sayadaw mentioned, Sikwe Yayama Sida Shuda Pepyale. If we don't know what's to be known, observe it till we do. So whatever arises, we need to observe it. This is what arises is when we look at what's the arising object, there is something to be known. And if we don't know it, we observe it. We observe that object again and again until we know. And this is the knowledge that comes through doing this is called bhavana knowledge, and it's knowledge that we possess ourselves. Someone who values their health researches, studies how to improve and how to keep good health. And knowing this, knowing what they need to do to have good health, they put that into practice, and then they can get good health. And especially when we are trying to get rid of a disease, when we are sick, we approach a doctor and we explain our symptoms. The doctor diagnoses based on what we say and gives us some medicine. And he or she also may say, avoid eating this, and if you eat that, it's good for you. When we're listening to the doctor's instructions, we need to listen carefully. And when taking the medicine, we need to do so as prescribed. And when we're better, we also need to do what the doctor tells us. We need to avoid things that he says are not good for us, and need to do things that he or she says are good for us in order to keep our health. And then only the doctor's instructions will be effective. Similarly, the kilesas of greed, hatred, and delusion are a very bad disease that we've had for lifetimes. With sila, the practice of sila, we can overcome the transgressive kilesas. And with samadhi, the practice of samadhi, we use that to suppress overcome the obsessive kilesas. And with wisdom, we weaken and cut them off completely. Therefore, we need to learn the method of practice, and having learned it, we just need to put it into practice. So just as for health, we carry out what the doctor instructs us to do, and we take the prescription exactly and follow his advice regarding what to do and what to avoid, and we're not afraid to follow what he says. In the same spirit, knowing the method for curing the kilesa disease, we need to put it into practice. And this is the yogi's job. At the start, what yogis need to know is that the physicality and mentality occurring in one's body are the truth of suffering. These are really there. And due to not knowing or knowing wrongly, we grasp these, and this grasping is the cause of suffering. What we need to do is observe them as they occur. We need to observe the arising physicality and mentality in our body as it occurs. So if we need to just follow it with our mind. So we need to do that right as it occurs at the present moment. If we think about what it is, we won't be able to catch the object. It'll already be gone. A past object is not going to bring us knowledge. an object that hasn't happened yet is in the future. It's also what might happen if we also can't observe an object that has not happened yet. What is fruitful to observe is the presently arising object. This is what is to be noted and to be known. And this is very important. Note the present body-mind as it occurs to see what's true. So we need to note what arises, the presently occurring body and mind, at the present moment in order to know it correctly. Only if we know at the present moment, only if we note it at the present moment, at the moment it occurs, will we see correctly. Well, Sayadaw said, note the present body-mind as it occurs to see what's true. So this body-mind as it occurs, what do we mean by that? There are 6 types of things that can occur. There's seeing. In the moment of seeing, there's seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, thinking. So when we see, that's the moment of seeing, and so on. And this is what we mean by the present body-mind. So there's both these moments, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, and thinking, are physical and mental, rupa and nama. The physical part is that which doesn't know. The mental part is that which knows. At first we don't see much of anything when we start the practice and observing in a moment of seeing. We don't yet see much, but as we continue to practice and we come closer and closer to the object, we become aware of the components involved in a moment of seeing. There's mentality, nama, and physicality, rupa. For example, the eyes. The eyes are involved in seeing. If we have good eyes, we can see. And the eye base is physicality. And striking the eye base are various forms, and these are also physicality. Due to the form striking the eye, or visible object striking the eye base, we know, we come to see, we know the form, and that is called, that knowing that arises is called seeing consciousness. In the moment of seeing, we know red, green, or blue, yellow, black. We know colors. And we also know form and shape. So when the eye and the visible object contact each other and seeing consciousness arise, there's also the quality of these elements meeting each other. And this, in Pali, this is called phassa, and it's contact due to seeing. Contact is but in a moment of seeing, you can say it's seeing contact, or contact due to seeing. And also, when we come to know the form of something, it may be something good to see, or it may be something that's not good to see, or it may be nothing special one way or the other, neutral. For the most part, we experience either good, it seems good to us, or it seems bad to us. And at this time, this quality of feeling the good and bad is called feeling, or Vedana, and it's connected with seeing. So the feeling due to seeing. These aspects, the seeing consciousness and the contact and the feeling, are all mentality. So in a moment of seeing, there's just these two things: physicality, rupa, and mentality, nama. And in order to know this, we note the present body-mind as it occurs to see what's true. These three things that Sayadaw has been mentioning, the I and the form and the mental qualities that arise, these all have their own nature. And because they have their own nature, they're called in Pali Dhatu, which means element. For example, the I is a receptor. It's called a base or receptor element. It receives the form. And the visible object or the form, it has the nature to be seen, and it's that which strikes the eye. So it's called the striker element. The eye is called the receptor element, and the form which strikes it is called the striker element. And the seeing consciousness that arises due to these two elements, the base and the striker, meeting each other, is, you can call it the spark or the ignition element. And in that mentality, there's the seeing consciousness and contact and feeling. All these things have their own nature, so they're called elements or dhatu. And Sayadaw gave an example. I didn't catch the example, so I'm going to use the matchbox instead. Okay. Sayadaw gave an example to illustrate how these three qualities work together. And that is the example of what happens when you put a piece of paper under a magnifying glass and shine a ray of sun through the magnifying glass. The light comes through the magnifying glass and strikes the paper. And because of the heat that comes to be generated as the sunlight continues to go through the magnifying glass, fire bursts out. So these are this is to illustrate how the two physical elements and the mental element come together. The two physical elements, the magnifying glass is like the base, the base element, and the sunlight is like the striker element. And the fire that bursts out as a result of the light going through to the paper is the ignition element or spark. We say that the paper was burned by the fire, but where did this fire come from? Was it in the paper? Or, look at the glass, was it in the glass? No, it happens because of the sun coming through. But is it just due to the sun ray? No, because if we don't have paper underneath the magnifying glass, there won't be anything to burn. The fire won't break out. So what Sayadaw wants us to understand from this example is that due to causes coming together, we experience seeing. Just the way due to causes coming together, the fire breaks out because of the paper, the magnifying glass, and the sunlight. So what we experience arises due to causes coming together. Sayadaw gives another example, which is that of a matchstick and a matchbox, and the flame that results when we strike the stick on the box. The matchstick has, on its head, it has material that can ignite. And the matchbox has a rough surface on one side. And if each of these things, the matchstick and the matchbox, if you keep them separately, nothing is going to happen. There's no spark that will happen. But when you strike the match head on the rough part of the box, then there will be a fire, a spark and a fire. This is just like in the moment of seeing. What is happening? There's the base, the eye base, the form striking the eye, and this consciousness, the spark. So it's just these, in the case of the matchstick, it's just the base element, the striker element, and the spark or the ignition element coming together. So this is not occurring because of a creator. For example, when we see something, it's due to the combination of the striker element striking the base and consciousness arising. It's not due to a creator God that makes us see. It's just due to causes that are coming together. So with the match, if we don't strike the matchstick against the box, fire will not happen. Is this because God told the flame not to happen? Did God prevent the flame from happening? So yogis must understand about their experience that what we experience happens in just this way and not due to any creator. In the moment of seeing, there's the eye base, the striker, the form, and the seeing consciousness, the spark. And these each have their own nature. They are happening according to their own nature. So knowing this, when seeing arises, just note it. Just observe whatever we experience. In the moment of seeing, just note seeing. Although there are these three elements involved, don't note them separately. Don't note, I, or form. Note the whole thing, the whole experience of seeing. So when seeing arises, just note it as seeing, or whatever word in whatever language you use. You just note the whole thing. And what happens is, Sayadaw will illustrate with an example. When we want to know somebody, when we want to know what someone looks like, we need to look that person in the face. So we look straight at their face, and we're face to face. And we look at the whole face. But as we continue to observe the person, we notice the forehead, or we notice the eyebrows, or the nose, or the eyes. So from seeing the whole, we come to notice the parts. When seeing occurs, just note seeing, seeing. And this topic will be continued with examples of other things we experience tomorrow night. Sadhu, sadhu.